First, there should be a sign language interpreter or a medic or a midwife who understands sign language. The washrooms, oh my, it's even worse when you visit, and especially our public hospitals. Many times I go there, I feel like crying because I imagine this mom on a wheelchair. The toilet is so dirty, and I mean,
How do you even manage? Yeah.
I don't know. It's really sad. There is thank you
Yes.
or please.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
There are few words that show, oh, this person is kind or ready to work with me.
Okay. All right. And I know.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. How did you go from being a domestic help to being BBC's most, top 100 most influential women in the world? Just tell me the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
This maybe we take it back to my late primary school years. After I did class 8, I was to join a national school.
Okay.
But my parents at that point were not able to take me to high school. So my grandma knew this school, the school for the deaf that is near her home. So she took me there just for one time. For her, she was trying to see maybe around that time my parents will have organized themselves and maybe they'll take me to my school, my dream school. So for one term, I schooled there. And in that one term, they were not able to pay school fees for me. So after one term, you can stay in a school for one term and the school fees has not been paid as much as the school wants to keep you, they can't sustain you. So I had to go back home. And it was a struggle. Of course, at that teenage stage, you're not sure whether you'll ever go back to school. And I loved books from long time. So I went to stay with my auntie who took me in because she was also in school. She was not able to take me to pay for my high school. Okay. So she took me in as her house help and she was paying me. And I was saving that money to go back to school.
Yeah.
So that's how now the house help part started there. After 2 years, I went back to school. I had saved enough. I went back to school, now fully ready to learn sign language because in the first one term, I never wanted anything to do with the deaf or even to interact with them. Yeah. But now there, I had to go fully loaded and ready to learn sign language and work with the deaf people. So out of the friends I made in high school, I still continued with them after high school. And I started being in the deaf world as a sign language interpreter and a key person in their lives. And that's how I started seeing gaps now that made me get to 100 women, most influential women in the world, because of my journey in the maternal care for deaf women.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, that's exciting.
Thank you.
And sign language, it's actually a language that's quite interesting to me and quite, because it has a lot of features. You have to show your face, you have to smile, you have to, if something is exciting you. Yeah, because that's how you speak with them, because you're speaking with your hands, but also you have to show the face. Like, I remember last week they gave our producer a funny name because he's called Donald. So they just did something with his ear because he's listening as a producer and the mouth, because he speaks a lot. So like Donald Duck, but I'm still waiting for my sign name.
Wow.
But they insinuated something to do with my hair because I like putting my hair like this.
Wow.
So what's the first ever word that you learned in sign language?
I'd say sign language is a bit unique because you first learn the alphabets, but the first word I remember was friend. And this was because of one girl who would see how I was not interacting with other people. Yeah. And so she came and told me, I want to be your friend. So this is what I got first before anything else. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And your life seems to have been so incredible, with a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So maybe in sign language, if there's a dance or a sign that can emulate your life, what would it be?
Joyful.
Joyful.
Joy,
This is how you do
joy.
joyful.
Joy.
Oh, joy.
Yeah, this
Okay.
joy. So
All right.
joyful.
Now, speaking about joy, emotions go up and down. About your story, I learned of something to do with postpartum depression that actually fueled you into what you're doing right now. Can you just tell us more about that?
Thank you. I think this is one of the it was a sad thing in the beginning, but to me, it's one of my success in life because it has given me a purpose in life. During COVID, I gave birth to my beautiful Melissa, and I went through postpartum depression. But I did not know that I was going through postpartum depression because it had started before. I was going through so much before the pregnancy, and I did not know that I needed to deal with it. I had major losses that I had not dealt with. I had lost my dad like a year and a half before. And when I lost my dad, I was expecting, I was 5 months pregnant, and I lost the pregnancy, which I also didn't deal with it because I lost it out of shock. And so I never dealt with it as a loss. So I dealt with my dad's death more than I focused on myself. And through that, because I bled for quite some time, unknowingly, like my conscious mind was blocked. So by the time I was going to the hospital, the doctor said that my uterus was affected and chances of me conceiving again were minimal, were very low. So I started now thinking I had my firstborn, but I was thinking now I'll never get another child. So by the time I conceived, I was not very keen on myself again. And in that process of loss, I had a very close friend of mine who was like a mother figure to me and my family. And around that time, she got cancer. Before we could even internalize what was happening, she left us. So I had like 3 major losses that I had not dealt with. And that's the time I conceived. I carried through the pregnancy. I was okay. But now when I gave birth, I think everything that I had shelved in my subconscious mind now came back. And I went through postpartum depression. First, I even didn't know what it was because as much as I had gone to school, I was educated. I never knew that it existed. So we stayed for some time before we could know what it is until one of the many days we went to the hospital like 3 times in one day because I had very bad headaches that were never going, and I had very funny characters. Sometimes I would stay with the baby, sometimes I don't. Anybody close to me, I don't. Noise, I don't. Anybody around me. So this made us think we need to look for medications. When we went to the hospital and the doctor diagnosed me with postpartum depression, I was taken back. Like, this is real. And as I told you earlier, that 90% of my friends are deaf people. So they would come to me just to, oh, Judy got a baby. They're coming excited to see my baby, but they didn't know what I was going through. Some thought I was proud. Some thought I don't want them in my house. So now when I went through healing and therapy, and of course I was put on medication for like 3 months, I now started understanding the deaf. I told them what was happening, and some would tell me, it happened to me, but I didn't know it was a big thing. Some were saying, my mom would push me to breastfeed my baby and never wanted. Some were even being slapped by their parents because they think you are rejecting your child, but they didn't know what it is. And some would say the trauma was coming even when the experience of giving birth, because the medics don't know sign language. So instead of the doctor talking to you, they slap you, or like when the doctor is telling a mom push or stop pushing, something like that, or they want to check how far they have dilated, they don't talk to them, they just go doing things, but they're not aware of what exactly is being done. So all that trauma made them go through postpartum depression in different ways. Of course, postpartum manifests in different ways. So that's how I started the initiative for taking care of the deaf women.
Okay. So this is Talking Hands, Listening Eyes.
Yes.
I love that name. I truly love that name. So how did these two things cause you to now come up with that organization?
This was COVID time again. The country was on a lockdown. I remember everything started. I put my contacts on social media. It said any deaf mom who needs a sign language interpreter. I remember that time people are not moving around. So I was imagining a deaf mom who is going to the hospital without a sign language interpreter. I put across to all my deaf social networks, and so many people are reaching out to me. And in the process, I received one call. I remember on 7th of November, 2020, I received a call from one of the hospitals that they had this deaf mom who was giving birth, but she looked like she was not ready. So I went and checked, and it's true, she was not ready. She was not even aware she was going to give birth, because to her, she had been misinformed by many of her friends that if you keep taking conk tea leaves for the 9 months pregnancy period, she never even went for the clinics. You will miscarry, so the pregnancy will just come out. So even this time she was going to give birth, because it was kind of, the miscarriage was happening. So I had to walk with her the journey, and that time it was a bit hard because the country is on a lockdown. You have to go every day to check on her, and she was staying far from where we were staying. Actually, she was staying in the middle of the slum. And so I would go there every day. And I did not know that when I'm not there, because I would go to work, but in the evening I would go to her house, go clean for her, wash for her, wash the baby, cook for her, and then go back home. And it was a distance. I didn't know that when she sleeps, the neighbors were not sure or were not aware of how to wake her up. So what they would do is they would throw stones on her rooftop. You know how the iron sheets burst when stones are thrown on them. So the neighbors never knew that they were affecting the baby, not the mother, because the mother can't hear, but the baby can hear.
Yeah.
So she went through postpartum as well, but in a very different way. So that's the time I realized, I need to think about the deaf women in a different angle. Actually, we took her into our house because now it was becoming cumbersome for me to go, and we stayed with her in my house for 4 years until the baby hit 4 years. So all this time, many deaf women started reaching out to me. If a deaf mom is pregnant, I would go together. And we held our first ever baby shower for deaf women in 2022, which brought about almost 100 deaf women together. Some had babies below 5 years, and they were struggling in different angles, and some were expecting. So all together. So how we did it, we got medics who advised them, who worked with them the journey. And through that, I realized where we have a big need here. And so I started now working with them in hospitals. I think I have received very many babies because I've worked with them even in the labor ward, and it has been a journey. Through that, I thought it's good to bring them together and work now as talking hands, listening eyes. This name is purely sign language because the deaf talk with their hands and they listen with their eyes. That's pure sign language.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I hear a lot that you're in service, definitely in service to mothers who are going through something you went through that people don't understand, which is postpartum. So that's linked to mental health and also deaf and general population of disability.
Yes.
So when it comes to the service sector, let's say an essential service like hospital, what are some of the communication loopholes that they often overlook that they can just solve with something simple? Yes.
Sometimes I would say our medics, either out of ignorance or because they don't know, they assume the deaf people will see, like if people are seated in a queue, we are here queuing, if they're inside the room, they'll just call next to get in, and they assume that person everybody in that queue is hearing.
Yeah.
So sometimes the deaf other people jump them thinking as well, because deafness is a silent disability. Very few people will know this person is deaf. They will be thinking this person who is on phone or just here seated is not ready to go for medication. So some of those gaps, so they always take the last things, even including if you made a joke, they laugh last because you will hear, you as a hearing person, you laugh. By the time I'm explaining, the joke is no longer a joke.
And probably even the way the person is translating it's not funny.
Exactly. So they're wondering why you're laughing. So some of the jargons in the medical world, thanks God Google came. But even when Google is there, even if they Google, sometimes it may be too jargons for them to understand what it means. So sometimes the doctors will think, because this person is looks like they're not literate, I will write in Swahili. The deaf people don't know Swahili. Most of them don't know Swahili. Okay. So you see their gaps, they misunderstand. And through this, I learned that very many deaf mothers go through miscarriages because they say this and the doctor understands this way, or the doctor means this and them they understand it this way. So by the time they're even getting medication, it's totally different communication. Also, even when they're admitted in the hospitals, the doctors assume they know how to communicate with them. Sometimes I have an example of a deaf mom who gave birth in one of the national hospitals, and then the day she was discharged, she did not know she was discharged. The doctor came around 9, discharged her, but left that sheet on her bed. She did not read. She did not know she was supposed to go home. So I went there around 4 to check on her. That's when I read the note. You've been discharged. So then she was not really prepared on what she really needed. You can imagine, for all those years, from hours from 9 to 4, that's the time I'm going to check and find out she has been discharged. Now it's the discharge process. They did not explain to her what she needed to do. And these days, unlike Kitambo, these days there's some eye drops they put for the babies when the babies are born. And this baby was put on the drops. But because in the hospital, the nurses were not communicating with her, what did she never knew that she's supposed to wipe the baby. The nurses would wipe and they go to check on her. And she was given that drop to go home with. But she never knew she was supposed to wipe the baby. After 2 days, I SMS her. How are you? How is the baby? She tells me, baby is fine, but she's not opening her eyes. I asked, why? So I said, instead of asking her why, let me just go. When I went there, I realized her eyes, the way it looks like glue because of the dawa. So yes. We had to go to the hospital. And thanks God we went to the hospital, because the baby had already started developing jaundice. Okay, of course, it was not an effect of this medicine, but imagine the mother never knew.
Because the eyes were closed.
The eyes were closed. So you can see some of the dangers of the assumption that the doctors will assume you know this, yet you don't know. I also think some of these things we never learn from a class. We learn from hearing from our friends, from our parents, from the people we live with around. And some of these things the deaf never get to hear. For example, the deaf mama was telling you, when there was a time the baby had fever. It was in the night, and remember there was curfew, so I would not go to her house in the night. So I SMS'd her, remove all her clothes, leave her with a vest. She texted me back, what is a vest? It hit me that some of these things we are never taught. Like if you go to a shop, you will know, even you hear somebody saying, this is a romper, this is a trouser. Sometimes we assume they know, yet they have not heard. So I had to take a photo of my baby's vest and send her for her to understand what a vest is. So you can imagine some of these assumptions that we think the deaf know. Some of them we learn from our environment, which the deaf never get. They are disadvantaged by the environmental noise.
That's true. Yeah. That's true, because I have a friend who also is a translator, and she was telling me that, a lot of time, even when raising disabled kids, you find that you only want to take care of their basic stuff, like let's say telling them to come eat.
Yes.
And then after they eat, they're okay, you tell them go to sleep. So definitely in between, they're missing a lot of things.
No conversation.
Yes, missing a lot of conversations. There are some things that they are not learning that we are assuming that they should know. Yeah. And also, when I think about it, you've said there's a communication problem. So now what happens to that mama who's in the village, like, maybe somewhere in Turkana, and they are deaf, and you've said they don't understand, like, for example, Swahili. Yeah, so if we're having such problems here in Nairobi, what do you think of maybe mashinani areas, and how can we communicate better with them?
It's a big challenge. I feel it because every day, most of our deaf people in Nairobi, let me use in Nairobi, are exposed to information somehow.
Yeah.
Not fully, but they're exposed to information because we have very many sign language interpreters in Nairobi. Yes. We also have our smartphones. Some of the information they may learn a little bit from the smartphones. And sometimes they may have friends who are ready to work with them. But for those who are in Mashinani, and I'll say, as you have given an example of Turkana, where we have a lot of FGM, we have a lot of GBV. There's so many things happening around there. They just live, I think they just operate on autopilot. They're just moving. Every day they wake up, they do things, but some of these things, even the cultural things, they just do them unknowingly. They don't know what they are. They don't know the dangers. They just live.
Yeah.
And we are looking forward to reaching out to where the marginalized, so that we bring them. We may not do it fully, but we give them some of this information, and also make awareness, create an awareness to the society around them, to know, treat these people better, because you may think they know, but they don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so let's imagine we walk right now into a maternity ward. How would a perfectly inclusive maternity ward look like? What kind of things should it have? What kind of ways should it communicate to, like, the patients?
First, there should be a sign language interpreter or a medical, a midwife who understands sign language. We should have signages for, like, even maybe voice for the blind. We should also have rails that support those who are on wheelchairs. We should also have friendly maternity beds, because you can imagine a woman who has a physical disability, maybe they're on a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Before, if a bed is at this level, they may not get to climb that bed. Some, they have to be lifted by the medics to put on the table, on the bed, which is not hygienically right. It's not even, it's not right. You, because you feel like your privacy, there's no privacy in you, because can imagine your space is being interfered with. So I think we need to also have people who understand the disability etiquette, because they will know how to guide a blind patient. They will know how to guide a one who is on a wheelchair. They will even be able to guide those who are going through mental issues, because it's also a disability in a way. We have those who are going through mental issues. So all those together, we need to put them as we are constructing our maternities, or even now, because we have to start somewhere. I feel we have to start somewhere. Where we are, can we make it better? We need to have ramps that the wheelchair are able to use very well, and they can access comfortably. The washrooms, oh my, it's even worse when you visit, and especially our public hospitals. Many times I go there, I feel like crying, because I imagine this mom on a wheelchair. The toilet is so dirty, and I mean,
how do you even manage?
I don't know. It's really sad. Yeah.
So how do you blend sign language with something like trauma counseling? Are there maybe signs for, like, maybe that show emotional intelligence, like maybe a sign for depression? Are there signs for such things?
Yes, we have signs. And as I said in the beginning, when you're asking me about how I learned my first word in sign language is a language like any other. And so they are the very basics. They are also alphabets. I may not know a word in sign language. I may I may fingerspell the word. Either this deaf mom may understand, or I can give a sign which is closer for them. I break the information. I don't know how to put this. I don't want to say that the deaf are illiterate, but the same way I would break very hard information to my 5-year-old, I am able to break it to my 9-year-old, and the same information I can break it to you who you can understand. Is the same way. I know the level of this deaf person when I interact with them. I know there's a deaf person, I would give a big word and they understand what it means. There's another one whom I may need to break it down. There's another one whom I may need even to get a real example.
Okay.
I learned this again in my everyday is a learning process. When my 9-year-old was 3 years, I was taking her one day to school and I was driving her. I drive a small car. And then she asked me a question that made me see how I communicate with the deaf people. Because we saw, the water boosters, those blue lorries. She asked me, what does that big tank carry? I said it carries water. It transports water to people who don't have water. Then she asked me, so what do they use the water for? I said washing, cooking, and even drinking. After like 5 minutes, she asked me, who drives that lorry? I said the driver.
Yeah.
I didn't know where this was heading. She asked me, has he taken shower? I said yes. So she said, does that mean that the people cook with dirty water? She was 3 years. So I understood her when I said that tank carries water. That means he showers in the same tank. He uses the same water, and it's the same water that's taken to cook and to do other things. And it opened my eyes. I had to do it practically. When we went home, I had to put a pipe on the tap and the bucket. We washed our hands. We poured that water, and now we put in another bucket. That's how they do it. So I explained. Of course, I explained. And I realized unless you are intentional in communicating with the deaf people, most of the time, you may be giving them half-cooked information, thinking they understand, and you leave them worse than they were because of how you communicate. Because you think they know, you think they have heard, you think they must be by now. If you're 30 and you have never heard of a word like folic acids, then there must be a problem. But in the real sense is this person has never heard. Who talked to them? Who told them? Who told them what this is? So I am always intentional. In my own way, I am intentional. And the deaf women that I have worked with, a journey, I break the information down. Even the little things that may seem like, is obvious. Sometimes it's not obvious for them. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So how can a normal person, an everyday person, be an ally to, persons with disability? Because I feel the biggest problem that somehow can be misrepresented as stigma is, someone not knowing, how do I even start? So how can we start with being an ally? Yes.
People first be friends. Friendship is everything. And because when you become a friend you show interest in someone. For me to be your friend now, I have to show interest in what you're doing, how you are, how you're dressed, and compliment you. And sometimes I may want to touch your hair. I love your locks, but I may not just come and touch them. I may ask, can I touch your hair? Can I feel the texture? That's the same way. Respect them at their space.
Okay.
And then always confirm with them, is it okay for me to do this? And if they're deaf people, write to them, ask them, do you understand? And ask them, do you understand this? They will tell you yes or no. Okay. I want to learn your language. Because for every person, for me to be your friend, I may need to learn your culture, because there's a deaf culture. I may need to learn who you are. I may need to know so much about you for me to interact with you. And there must be a language. Learn their language. Okay. For like the women with or people with disabilities, physical disabilities. If I use a wheelchair, for example, many people assume, most of the times, if you see me seated here on a wheelchair, you assume because I want to get to that point, you have to come push me. I've not told you to push me. Okay. Because wheelchair is part of their clothing. Wheelchair is not like an assistive device for them. It's part of them. Yeah. It's part of my clothing. The way you would not come just touch my jacket here and wonder. That's the same way. So you ask, can I touch? Can I push you? Can I? So that they don't feel like you are you're intruding to their personal space. For the VI, these are the blind. Ask them as well. Can I lead you? Can I guide you? How? Can I guide you? Which is the best way to hold you? Because most of the times you see people pulling them, but that's not the way to guide a VA. They hold you here, then you walk with them. If you want to pass where if there's a block like this table, I put my hand behind, they know, oh, so there must be a block. But you will not know unless you have walked a journey with them.
Yes.
Be their friends. Show them friendship. Show them concern. Because most of the times we assume these people are not friendly. They're very, very friendly. But it's how maybe we approach them, or we assume they don't need to be helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So number 1, be friendly. Number 2, you ask.
Yes.
Number 3, listen with intent. Don't assume.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe you can teach us sign language that the whole audience can learn.
Yes.
And use it maybe when approaching a deaf person, or when they just want to say something that definitely will catch their attention and make someone feel like, yes, this is an ally, this is a friend.
For the deaf, of course, you start with hello or hello if it's one person.
Hello.
And then you say my name. Because you may not know your name, you write your name and they show you my name, or they sign, or you write to them. There is thank you.
Yes.
Or please.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
There are few words that show, oh, this person is kind or ready to work with me.
Okay. All right. And
Yes.
I know,
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure learning from you.
Yeah,
Please continue the work you're doing with thinking hands
Talking.
and listening. Talking hands, listening eyes.
Yes.
Maybe you can just tell us something you envision for the future of your organization.
Yes, thank you very much. And as I said, we are really focused on maternal and mental wellness of deaf women. And of course, now we are also working a journey with women with disabilities. And we have a 1-year program of trauma healing through storytelling.
Okay.
And we are also we are intentional in working with these women to deal with the traumas they're going through and the struggles they are going through.
Yes.
So for me, it's to reach out to as many women and to tell them it's okay not to be okay, and to feel free to reach out even to other organizations, or to go to the hospital, go to look for help where they feel like, I feel like I have carried so much, it's time to release.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sawa.